Hillary Clinton has been making the rounds on media to promote her latest book, Something Lost, Something Gained, Reflections on Life, Love and Liberty. On Sunday, CBS News aired an interview with the former Secretary of State, where she admitted she is still reeling from her 2016 loss to Donald Trump. Take a look.
In her book, Clinton, who had long hoped to be the first woman to become the U.S. president, says her loss in 2016 has been hard to shake, even 8 years later.
Since 2016, people have asked me, will you ever be able to move on? Move on? I wish.
This man has escaped accountability his entire life. The case, which was mistakenly called a hush money case, was an election interference case. Why did he do what he did? He did it to try to keep the information from the American public so that they wouldn't turn away from him and vote for me. So it's a pretty clear case of election interference.
Rotten and creepy. That's how Hillary Clinton described Elon Musk's recent post on X, directed at megastar Taylor Swift. In case you missed it, the tech billionaire had posted, quote, "Fine, Taylor, you win. I will give you a child and guard your cats with my life." Speaking on the Kara Swisher podcast, Clinton had some strong words for that. Let's listen.
Well, he had his alter ego, Elon Musk, say something really rotten and creepy about her.
Please comment on that. It was what Elon said. It was he essentially would have a baby with her, or forcibly have a baby with her, and then
impregnate her. Which is kind of another way of saying rape, I think.
X users pounced on the irony, pointing out Clinton stayed with then-President Bill Clinton after the now well-known Monica Lewinsky fiasco. Clinton appeared on MSNBC's Rachel Maddow program, where she also talked about former foe Donald Trump. Independent journalist Aaron Mate took to X, posting, quote, "Hillary Clinton calls for criminal charges and civil penalties against Americans engaged in spreading propaganda." To make her argument against free speech, she invokes the Russiagate scam that itself was the product of her campaign's own propaganda. Speaking of which, the case that she invokes here, Mueller charging some Russians for social media activity, led to Mueller dropping the case after the Russian company showed up to fight the case in court. So does the former reigning queen of Democratic politics add to the conversation? So in this clip, she suggested jailing Americans for misinformation, that there needs to be deterrence. That's the outrage that many on social media were responding to.
You know, the thing about Hillary Clinton is she has a way of outraging people of almost any kind of political stripe or across the whole political spectrum. Aaron Mate, who you mentioned, is not to be mistaken for a conservative, I think. He's a fairly progressive figure.
Yes, certainly.
And he is outraged about the Russian stuff. Many conservatives will be outraged about that. I notice in her book she has a go at the pro-Palestinian student protesters, claiming that they need to be better educated, basically. Hillary Clinton has a capacity to be kind of patronizing and sanctimonious, and that tends to irk people, whatever their political views are, unless their political views exactly replicate hers.
And that describes very few people. I mean, not literally very few people. Right. Obviously, millions voted for her, but she underperformed as a Democratic candidate. She forgot to campaign in the key states. This is someone who just desperately wanted to be president. That's her ideology. And yes, was firmly committed to, I would argue, an interventionist or neoconservative foreign policy that is not what many on the left want from a Democratic candidate. Is not the way the right has gone. Her criticisms of some fellow Democrats, and then, of course, Donald Trump and his influence on the party is all about, betraying our allies or, pulling back from the world stage. Everything that doesn't go her way is Russia, Russia this, Russia, Russia that. She attributes her own loss to interference from Russia that, in my view, the evidence has not well substantiated, was a significant part. Yes, there were some clumsy attempts to have Facebook bots on social media, but they paled in comparison to the amount of money that campaigns spent on social media advocacy. There's no evidence they were targeted at swing voters in Pennsylvania and Michigan, et cetera. But she's done things like call Tulsi Gabbard a Russian plant. I think she said the same about Jill Stein. She's just someone who doesn't take responsibility for the fact that she did not present an appealing platform to win the voters she needed.
And to that point, I think what some people on the left broadly take exception to is yes, partly the policy, the what they would perceive as warmongering and all of that. It's also the fact that Hillary Clinton pops up quite regularly to lecture people on campaigning or in elections. And it's not just about 2016 when one looks at her record, which is really in electoral politics or in accomplishing things pretty bad. I mean, first of all, as First Lady, she spearheaded a search for expanded healthcare that foundered and went nowhere. In 2008, she had all the advantages in the world, seeking the Democratic nomination against Barack Obama and lost. In 2016, she came close to losing to Bernie Sanders, who up until that point had been seen as this maverick fringe figure. So it's not as if Hillary Clinton is speaking from any position of authority or impressive record, even when it comes to political tactics or strategy.
Yeah, I mean, her strategy is stop complaining. You have to get behind the Democratic nominee. When that was Joe Biden, that's what she's saying. Now she's saying that about Kamala Harris. It's just very tired and very what she's always about. This whole idea of criminalizing, her and other Democrats talk increasingly apocalyptically about the spread of misinformation. It's like if they could just control what you are allowed to consume and see, then they would win forever, which is a very limiting kind of idea or betrays, I think, a lack of faith in one's own agenda or one's own ability to be persuasive, but maybe she actually never has been a particularly persuasive individual.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it would never, the misinformation issue, I'm not saying that there is zero misinformation. There plainly is.
Oh, there is, yes.
There are.
But how do we handle it? Do we handle it by trying to criminalize it, which we actually just can't because that would violate the First Amendment, or do we handle it by putting out good information?
Right, and the argument that she makes does absolve her of responsibility for having lost in 2016 and had the various other failures that I mentioned. It will be interesting to see just to what extent she campaigns actively for Kamala Harris, to what extent Harris wants her to campaign for her. Given Hillary Clinton had the famous blue wall demolished against her by Donald Trump, if I were Kamala Harris's campaign manager, I wouldn't be seeking many Hillary Clinton appearances in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or Detroit, but we shall see.
It was one of the worst run campaigns of all time by her campaign manager, a person named Robby, which that offends me as a fellow Robby. Like, didn't visit the swing states, had picked a VP who added absolutely nothing. Which is the way she wanted it.
Right.
I think she didn't want the spotlight being stolen from her. She picked someone we can barely even remember his name, Tim Kaine.
Right.
Forgettable.
And purportedly the safe choice, which was the problem with
Right.
the safe choice was the case wasn't being made by the person at the top of the ticket, and the glass ceiling remained unshattered on that occasion.
Well, we'll see if people want to hear much more from Hillary Clinton. She always has another project in the works, and we'll have more Rising right after this.